Somewhere right now, someone talented is one step away from the thing they've worked toward for years. And quietly, methodically, without ever admitting it to themselves, making sure it doesn't happen. Not through some dramatic act of self-sabotage, through a missed deadline that wasn't really missed by accident, through a hesitation at exactly the moment momentum mattered most, through a version of "I'm not quite ready yet" that has been true for longer than it should reasonably still be true. If you ask this person whether they want to succeed, they would answer yes immediately and mean it completely. That's what makes this pattern so difficult to catch. It doesn't feel like fear from the inside. It feels like caution or perfectionism or bad timing or simply not being ready. It rarely feels like what it actually is. By the end of this video, you'll understand the real mechanism behind why capable people stall right before the finish line, over and over, in ways that look accidental but aren't. And you'll have a specific test that reveals whether success itself, not failure, is the thing you're actually protecting yourself from. Stay for that part. Most people are shocked by what the test shows them. The trap nobody sees coming. Here's the pattern before the psychology of why. Fear of failure is a familiar, well-worn idea. Everyone accepts that people avoid trying because they're afraid of not being good enough. Fear of success is a stranger, less intuitive concept, because on its face it makes no sense. Why would anyone be afraid of the thing they say they want? Here's the answer, stated as plainly as possible. Success isn't just an outcome. It's a change in status, in visibility, and in what's expected of you next, permanently. Failure, painful as it is, returns you to a familiar baseline. Success moves the baseline itself, and moving the baseline means leaving behind whatever equilibrium, relationships, and self-concept were built around the old one. For a mind that equates stability with safety, that's not automatically good news just because it's called success. This isn't about deserving success or not deserving it, and it isn't about low self-esteem in the simple sense most people mean when they use that phrase. It's about a very specific, very rational-sounding calculation running underneath conscious awareness. Staying where I am is a known, survivable state. Becoming someone new, someone more visible, more responsible for the outcome, more exposed to judgment, is unknown. And unknown reads as dangerous, exactly the same way it does in every other pattern of avoidance the mind is capable of. There's a reason this specific fear concentrates so heavily in genuinely talented, capable people, rather than showing up evenly across the population. You can only fear success in proportion to how real the possibility of it actually feels. Someone who doesn't believe success is realistically available to them doesn't experience this mechanism, because there's no live threat to defend against. It's precisely the people close enough to see the outcome clearly, close enough to know it's not hypothetical, who generate the strongest unconscious defense against it. In a strange way, this fear is a byproduct of being good enough for the fear to make sense in the first place. It doesn't show up for people who haven't done the work. It shows up right at the threshold for people who have. Point 1. Success changes who is allowed to know you. Call her Adiz, 33, a novelist, 2 books into a career that was, by any external measure, taking off. She described the moment clearly. Her agent called with an offer that would have meant leaving her day job, and instead of relief, she felt something closer to dread. I kept thinking about my sister. She's been trying to make it as a musician for a decade, and it hasn't happened for her yet. If this happens for me, what does that do to us? This is the first mechanism, and it's rarely spoken about directly because it sounds almost noble when you say it out loud, which makes it easy to mistake for generosity rather than fear. Success threatens belonging, not in the abstract, in the specific, concrete sense that outperforming the people closest to you changes the relationship, sometimes permanently, and some part of the mind would rather stay smaller than risk that change. This isn't paranoia. It's frequently accurate. Relationships built partly on shared struggle, shared status, or a specific unspoken hierarchy do sometimes strain when one person's circumstances change dramatically and the others don't. Adese isn't imagining a risk that doesn't exist. She's responding to a real one. She's just responding to it by trying to prevent the success itself, rather than by finding out whether the relationship can actually hold the change, which is a very different, much harder question that she has never let herself ask directly. There's a particular guilt that attaches to this version of the fear, because it dresses itself up as care for someone else rather than fear for yourself, which makes it almost impossible to challenge without feeling like you're being asked to stop caring about your sister, your friend, your old crew from before things changed. Adese would tell you honestly that she wants good things for her sister. That's true, and it's also not the whole story. The unexamined half of the story is that she has built part of her own sense of safety on the two of them being in roughly the same place at roughly the same time. And any scenario where that stops being true feels less like her sister's loss, and more like the quiet collapse of a shared floor they've both been standing on for a decade. Point 2. The bar that never goes back down. Call him Quaim, 28, a software engineer whose team had just shipped a product that dramatically outperformed projections. His work specifically was credited as the reason. Instead of the confidence you'd expect this to produce, he described something closer to panic. Everyone's going to expect this every time now. What happens the first time I don't deliver something this good? This is the second mechanism, and it explains a pattern that looks from the outside like modesty but functions internally like dread. Success doesn't just raise external expectations. It permanently resets the floor for what counts as acceptable from you specifically. Before the successful project, an average result from Quaim would have been read as average. After it, an average result reads as decline, a sign that the earlier success was luck, or a fluke, or unrepeatable. The bar goes up and it does not come back down, and Quaim's nervous system understood this instantly and correctly, faster than his conscious mind did. This is why some highly capable people unconsciously prefer steady, moderate performance to one spectacular result, followed by an uncertain future. Steady, moderate performance is sustainable. It doesn't invite a new, harder standard that has to be met indefinitely, under increasing scrutiny, with no guarantee the conditions that produced the original success will ever line up the same way twice. From this angle, staying just below your ceiling isn't laziness. It's an unconscious strategy for avoiding a bar that, once raised, doesn't offer a way back down without it registering publicly as failure. Quick gut check, worth answering honestly rather than skimming past. Think of the last time you turned in work you knew was good, but held back from being your absolute best. Was there a version of you, underneath the stated reasons, that was more comfortable being seen as talented but holding back than as someone who gave everything and found out exactly where the ceiling actually is? That specific discomfort, the difference between "I could have done better if I'd tried" and "this was my best and it's still not enough," is doing more work in most careers than people ever admit, because the first one leaves an escape hatch and the second one doesn't. Quaim's story has a second layer worth nomming, because it shows up almost identically in anyone who's had one outsized win early. After the shipped product, he started noticing himself deliberately packing his output on the next project, not because the work required it, but because a second spectacular result, this soon would lock the new, higher bar in as the permanent baseline rather than a one-time high point. Some part of him was managing not the work itself, but the story the work would tell about what's now normal for him. That's a strange kind of sabotage, not avoiding success, but rationing it, so the bar rises slowly enough to still feel survivable. Point 3. Winning on your own terms. Call her Beatrice, 39, an entrepreneur on her third company, the first two of which she describes as almost working, close enough to succeeding that the near miss still stings years later, not close enough that either one actually made it. In her current company, she noticed a pattern she hadn't let herself see in the first two. At the exact moment things start accelerating, she finds a reason to slow down. a hire that could wait, a feature that needs more testing than it really does. A launch date that gets pushed by weeks for reasons that, examined honestly, don't hold up. Her own explanation, once she stopped defending the delays and actually looked at them. If I fail because I hesitated, that's a choice I made. If I fail after going all in and it still doesn't work, that means I might not be good enough, and I don't think I could survive finding that out. This is the third mechanism, and it's the most quietly devastating of the three, because it's disguised as caution rather than fear. Self-sabotage that arrives dressed as prudence is nearly impossible to catch in the moment, because every individual decision looks reasonable on its own. It's only visible in the pattern, a pattern of good, defensible-sounding choices that consistently, somehow, land just short of full commitment at exactly the moments that matter most. What Beatriz is actually protecting isn't the company. It's a specific belief about her own ceiling that she has never had to test directly, because she's never gone all in enough times to find out. As long as the failure can be attributed to a choice, hesitating, undercommitting, playing it safe, it never has to be attributed to a limit in her own ability. Controlled, partial failure is a story she can live with. Full effort failure is a story she structured her entire career to avoid ever having to tell. This is a documented pattern well outside Beatriz's individual case. Researchers studying self-handicapping have found that people will sometimes deliberately create obstacles for themselves before an important performance, specifically, so that a poor outcome has an alternative explanation available. It isn't limited to entrepreneurship. It shows up in students who stay up too late the night before an exam they've actually prepared well for, in athletes who mention an injury that isn't quite serious enough to withdraw over, in anyone who needs a ready-made excuse standing by, just in case the real answer to was that your best turns out to be yes and it still wasn't enough. The obstacle isn't the goal. The alibi is the goal. The reveal, the fear was never about failing. Here's the piece that reframes all three of these at once. None of these three people are actually afraid of failure in the way it's usually described. Adiz isn't afraid her book will flop. Quaim isn't afraid of one mediocre sprint. Beatriz isn't afraid of a company not working out. She's already survived that twice. What all three are protecting underneath the surface story is a stable, known identity and a stable, known set of relationships. And success is the thing that threatens to dissolve both, not by going wrong, but specifically by going right. That's the part that makes this pattern so hard to name from the inside. It doesn't announce itself as "I'm afraid of doing well." It shows up disguised as loyalty to a sister, prudence about a launch date, thoroughness about testing a feature, every disguise plausible, every disguise defensible, and every disguise pointed in the exact same direction. Keep things at a scale that doesn't require becoming someone new. The experiment. You cannot think your way past a fear that's been dressed up as good judgment for years, because every time you examine the reasoning holds up on its own terms. That's what makes it such an effective disguise. You have to test the fear directly, by removing the option to disguise it. Here's the version that works. Pick one concrete action, currently sitting in your not quite ready yet pile, that would move you visibly closer to the outcome you say you want, sending the manuscript, accepting the stretch assignment, launching the version that isn't perfect yet. Set a deadline no more than 72 hours out. Before the deadline, write down, honestly, every reason you're finding to delay it further. Don't filter them for how reasonable they sound, write all of them. Then look at the list and ask one question about each reason. Is this actually about the work not being ready? Or is it about what happens to my life, my relationships, or my sense of myself if the work succeeds? Most people, doing this honestly for the first time, find that a majority of their reasons collapse the moment that question gets asked directly. Reasonable-sounding delay and fear of success use almost identical language. The only way to tell them apart is to ask what specifically you're picturing happening after the success, not after the failure. If your mind goes quiet or evasive on that question, you found the real obstacle. Then do the thing anyway, on the deadline, with whatever incomplete confidence you have. Not because the fear disappears. It won't, not from one attempt. Because, exactly like every other pattern in this series, you cannot think your way out of a mechanism your body built. You can only give it new evidence, one uncomfortable data point at a time, until the old prediction stops matching what actually happens. The reframe. Adi's hesitation was never about her sister's feelings alone. Quame's caution was never really about the next sprint. Beatrice's delays were never really about the product being ready. In every case, the fear was doing exactly what fear is built to do, protecting a known, survivable state from an unknown one. Except the unknown state it was protecting them from wasn't failure. It was becoming someone whose life had visibly, permanently changed. That's the pattern under why smart people fear success. Not self-destruction, not a lack of ambition. A mechanism built to preserve a stable identity, running exactly as designed, aimed at the wrong target because nothing ever taught it that some changes are worth the instability they bring. If this describes the thing you keep almost doing and then quietly not doing, the 72-hour test is where to find out what's actually underneath it, not another round of deciding you'll do it when you're ready. You may never feel ready. That was never actually the condition being waited for. And if you've ever wondered why staying comfortable in a relationship you already know isn't working can feel safer than being alone with an uncertain future, that fear runs on a nearly identical circuit, just pointed at a different part of your life. That's next on Mental Index.